Hello, and welcome to this Supersite Advanced training. My name is Kate Grovergris, and I'm a Spanish instructor at Madison College in Madison, Wisconsin. In just a moment, we'll be joined by my colleague Stephanie Langston, who will walk us through the more advanced features of the Supersite. It's great to have you with us today. This is a simulated live broadcast, which means that as you watch the recording, you can use the chat or questions tool in the meeting menu panel to submit any questions that come up. After the broadcast today, your questions will then be shared with someone from the Vista Higher Learning team who will respond to your questions via email. And now let's take a look at the agenda for today's session. First, we'll take a look at all the wonderful tools available to us in the assessments area of the Supersite. Then we'll talk a little bit about instructor-created content and instructor notes, also how to use the calendar and the instructor resources, and then finally we'll take a look at the vocabulary tools. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Stephanie Langston. Take it away, Stephanie.
Thanks so much, Kate, for that wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Langston. I teach Spanish at Georgia State University Perimeter College. I have 2 children adopted from Colombia, and my husband and I have traveled to 49 countries, hoping to make that 50th. Thanks, COVID, for ruining those plans. So I hope that you'll enjoy today's presentation. Now let's get started. During this webinar, I'll be using the Aventuras 6th edition to demonstrate. However, the features that I'll be showing are available in all of the programs offered here in the Supersite. So let's get started with assessments. You'll go to the content menu and select assessment from the drop-down. And I encourage you to take a look at your own program that you use to see what all is available. You'll find different kinds of quizzes, and you'll find different kinds of tests available, as well as perhaps some multi-lesson exams. Now, when you're first glancing at these menus, you'll want to note that the apple, just as it did with the activities, signifies that that particular assessment has at least one section that needs to be graded by you, the instructor. So the apple means that there is at least one instructor graded section, perhaps more. The ones without the apple, of course, are completely auto-graded by the system. You can also take a peek at the answer key by clicking answer key at the very top as you are previewing any of these assessments. Click on return to assessment and you'll get right back to your list. The other icon to watch for is the headphones icon. That will let you know that there is at least one audio section, so the students will need to have audio enabled, or perhaps headsets, or simply have the sound on the device that they're using. Now, once you're here, you'll need to know how to assign an assessment. So let's decide on Lección 5, Prueba C. So I will simply click on Assign in the little dialog box that pops up, and let's assign it to, let's be mean and assign it to a Saturday night. How about that? All right, so we'll do that. And then we're going to select a category, and that is completely dependent upon the categories that you have in your own grade book. Now, if you are assigning an assessment that is completely auto-graded, if you would like, you may choose to allow more than one attempt. You don't have to do this, but you may choose to allow it. Now, if you are going to do this, you cannot set a time limit for that particular assessment. And the assessments themselves will not automatically respond to the number of limits or the number of attempts rather that you have in that particular category. So let's say that you have in your quizzes category, when you set up your grade book at the very beginning of the semester, you have the quizzes allow 1 attempt. However, you can override that here. Or if you had it set up for quizzes to allow 2 attempts, you could select 2 here, or you could even select 3, and that would override what your gradebook settings are. So you do have to set this for each individual assessment when you allow multiple attempts. Now, the students will see which answers are incorrect after the first attempt, but they will not see the correct answers. All right, so that is the multi-attempt available for auto-graded only assessment items. Now you can select to hide this assessment until you release it manually. That's the default. And that, by the way, is great if you can remember to release it or have maybe a calendar entry on your phone set, or if you are doing this in person in the classroom using devices or in the computer lab and want to release it at that moment. However, I do encourage you to set a specific date and time if you don't think that you'll remember. And now we'll move on to our next decision. Results will be available for students when all students have been graded is the default. You can also edit that and change it to when you individually decide to release those results to the class, after a specific date and time has passed, after the due time for the assessment, which for this one will be the 11th of July, or never. That is your choice. I'm going to leave this to when all students have been graded, which for an auto-graded test will be once the last student has submitted that assessment. Now the due time for this assessment can be the same as it is for the class's homework assignments, or it can be a completely different time altogether. If you decide to give an assessment during an actual class period or have it in a proctored setting like a testing center, that's when it might make sense to have a different due time. But again, that's your choice. You can set a time limit if you're allowing only one attempt, but not if you're allowing multiple attempts. So I'm going to go back and change this to one attempt just to show you what that looks like. So now I can set my time limit here. And here I can choose to randomize. Here we are. To randomize this per student. This means that each student will receive the same test questions, however, they will be randomized for each individual to show in a different order. So the actual sections will be shuffled, and where it makes sense, the questions within a section will be shuffled. Now for example, a dialogue or a narrative, obviously it would not make sense to shuffle those, so those will remain constant. And then the password. You may set a password if you'd like, but that's not mandatory. And here we are. We're going to save this one. Now, very quickly, let's assign a different assessment because I want this one to be hidden until I release it to show you what that process is. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and set a time limit for this one as well. So if you set it to the manual release, you'll see that it shows it's not available. I click release and that opens it up for the students, and we can toggle that back just like we did before. Also, you can unassign an item or reassign an item. And if I change one other little minor item here, so let's say that I need this item to also be when I release the results manually, then I'll see that I have two manual release options, one for the availability and one for the results. Now, one other nice feature is that if you have a student who needs extra time, who has modifications, you can go to the section level, not the course level, but the section level. And then next to the time limit, you can click Set Individual Times, select that student, whoever it might be, and give that student longer than is given on that particular assessment, whether it's time and a half or more. Now, you can, of course, assign anything that's in your program. You can also customize an assessment that's in the program. So let's take a look at Prueba A. Let's say that I really like this one. I just want to make a couple of little tweaks. So I am going to assign it, but first I'll need to copy it. To do that, I want to be at the course level. So I'm going back up to my course level first. I need to make a copy because it's not the original that I'll be modifying, it is the copy. Then I can go in and click the pencil icon, which it means that I'm going to be editing this. And I can rename this for myself, what I would like to call it. So let's call it Lección 5, Prueba para mi clase. Then you can also choose a location for the test. So maybe I want this to be somewhere other than where it is currently. So I'll keep the same lesson, but perhaps I want it to go in the grammar quizzes category. So that's up to you. And then most importantly, you can change what the students see on their end. So maybe I call these pruebas in my class. Prueba para lección 5. They only see this part. And by the way, this is an anti-cheating feature for students that may try to find answer keys online. Not that your students do that, but you can certainly change these little what the students see titles from time to time, just as added insurance. Now, you can do many things here. First of all, you can reorder or delete different sections in this particular test. I can move this one and shuffle the questions inside of it if I'd like. I can move it down to feature further down in the test, moving the previous section up one. Now, of course, you can randomize your tests at the assign level, so you don't necessarily have to shuffle them. But if you're not going to do that and want to shuffle them in a certain order here, you're more than welcome to do that manually. Or if there's a particular section that you don't like, you can just click the trash can icon and delete it. And the answer key will automatically update, and this asks for verification. So again, that reorder can work for sections themselves. It can also work for questions within a section. Again, that's the little shuffle icon. See, I'm shuffling them right now. And the delete can also work sometimes even for questions within the section, depending upon the type of section that you have. So if I want to delete this particular question, I can do that. Now let's do something exciting. Let's add something new. You can add existing content from anywhere in the VHL testing program to an assessment. I can search by lesson number. I'll keep it within the same lesson for now. I can also choose a strand or just display them all here all together. Maybe I want to add some more vocabulary to this. I can choose to add it from any of the existing assessments within the program. So you can sort of mix and match by choosing what you want from your favorite assessments. And it makes it really easy to create new versions of tests for each semester. You can also add from a different lesson if you like. Perhaps you only covered one grammar point from lesson 6 at the very end of the semester and nothing else. You could just choose to include that particular grammar point by choosing one of these questions that will represent it. So now that is in my assessment as well. Very easy to do that. You can also add your own new content by clicking on New Content here. You can add a true-false section. Very easy to just type in your title, your directions, change the number of points, and when you write in your questions, you can select which answer is true, which one is false. You can add questions to it by clicking here, and you can even change what you want the display options to be. I can make this cierto, falso, or sí, no, oui, no, whatever you'd like to have there. You can also choose to add multiple choice, 2, 3, or 4 options per question. And again, just keep adding your questions until you have what you like in that new section that you've created. And you can add a free response section. This will be great to change up the writing topic for a particular assessment for the new semester. I have over in my little notepad a couple things to copy over. So let's call this one ¿Cómo es? ¿Cómo está? For our title, and give some directions to the title. Okay, I'm going to make this worth 20 points instead of 10. And I'm going to have my word bank. You can add a word bank to any section. Here we go. You can also add in just a simple text reference. You can even upload an image. So for a particular writing assignment like this, where they're going to be describing something, I think it works really well to upload an image. You can also upload an image and have the students create some sort of dialogue around that image where instead of writing a narrative, they are writing a conversation. So the options are limitless. You can even have more than one section reference. You can even have more than one question prompt if you'd like. So you can do all kinds of things with these, creating your own sections from new content and from existing content. And along the lines of what else you can do, let's go ahead and add this one. You can even change the number of points that an existing section is worth. So let's say that you want for this section to be worth just 1 point per question. Click on the pencil icon and let's change that point value. And if you'd like, you can even change the title or the instruction line or add additional instructions by using this particular pencil icon. Now, for certain question types, you can take it a step further. Let's say that there is an existing section and you want to change the questions themselves. If that's an available option, you'll see the pencil icon and you can change this right here to a different word, for example. You can even change what shows as the answer option itself. And notice how it's updating it for all of them. Okay. You can even add a question if you like. All right, so now let's talk about what else we can do, because you can even create your very own custom assessment. You can start from scratch instead of starting with an existing assessment. So I'm going to exit out and I'm going to make sure I'm at my course level to do this. And I'm simply going to choose where I want this assessment to be and click on Create New. I have 4 different types. I can go to Partner Chat and create my own partner chat for my students to complete in pairs. And notice that you can even add audio as a reference. So I can give them the topic via audio. That's one type of assessment that would be great for an oral assessment. You can also create a brand new composition. This one's very straightforward. Simply title it, give direction lines, and it is like a writing quiz or an essay that you can grade inside the Supersite using their wonderful time-saving grading features. You can also create a student recording. This is another option to grade your students' speaking skills, where you can add your own audio input or written input, and then the students would record these individually. So you create the oral activity or the oral assessment, and create your own assessment where you build it from scratch. And here you can include multiple question types. You would simply title it and you would assign it a location. And then you're going to tell the system what the students should see on their end. And just start adding content. You can add existing content just like we did before when we modified an existing assessment, but now we're starting from scratch. But you can add existing content. By the way, this would be really helpful for midterms and exams. This is going to be so quick and easy. You can also add multiple sections from the same assessment if you'd like. Then, if you'd like, you can add brand new content, just like we did before, where you add in true-false sections that you create, a free response, even multiple choice questions, and then you can still edit these just like you did before by clicking on the edit icon, the little pencil, and you can further refine and you can create different versions for each semester. So there could not be any more flexibility or ease of use in the assessment builder. Now let's take a look at what the student sees. I'm going to log in as my sample student. And there are 3 ways that a student can access one of your assessments. The student can dig down by going to the content menu, selecting assessment, and clicking on the assessment that he or she would like to begin. Or the student can go to the calendar and the assessment will appear on the calendar date on which it is due, and the student can click on it from there. Or as most students do, the student can simply click start from the dashboard. So if I click start, as the student, I will be given this warning screen. So I know that as a test, I'm not going to accidentally submit it as a homework assignment. I can see all the details here. I can see the due date, how long I have to complete. I can see what will count in my answers, what will affect my score. I can see what requirements there are, and I can see that there is a password required for this particular assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that. And it shows from the student view that I can now start the assessment. So the student actually has to click start after opening this up from the dashboard. So no, oops, I accidentally completed it too soon, sorry. So now I have a countdown timer. I set this one for a minute so that it would go by very quickly. But you can see that countdown timer is hovering here. And if the student does not like that, he or she can click up here in the top left corner and simply hide the timer or view it again. So that is very simple. The student is not going to have to hunt for an assessment. So behind the scenes, I've switched over to my own account where I have my own classes because I want to show you something that I like to use quite often, and that is using instructor created content. So instructor created content is similar to what we did with the assessments where you create your own assessment from scratch, only these can simply be activities, or you can create instructor created content in the assessment area itself, but there are some different types to consider. For example, I can go to add content, new activity, and create a partner chat. You saw that in the assessment area. So if you do that, it will ask you for your title, directions, any reference materials you would like to upload, and then the students will see all of your, or hear all of your prompts because you can add audio. So here's an example of what one looks like. So as you can see, it looks like any other activity that's located inside the Supersite. And students can submit this right here. It goes straight to your gradebook. That's one type. You can also add a student recording, an individual student recording, and you can have an audio prompt for this if you'd like. And here is what one of those looks like. And here's the record button. You can also add a composition as an activity, not just as an assessment. It's a similar process. And here's what one of the composition activities looks like as an instructor created one. Again, it looks as if it has always been here in the Supersite. And now let's take a look at our last activity type, and that is a video. You can go to Add Content, New Activity, and select Video. It will have you fill in the title and directions, of course, but the most important thing is that you need a YouTube video link because it's going to display right here inside of the activity. So if you're creating some type of video of your own, you will need to upload that first to YouTube, or you can just grab any YouTube video. So here's an example of what that looks like. And it plays right here organically. I'll mention that the video activity type is not graded, so it's a credit, no credit style activity. The others, the composition, the student recording activity, and the partner chat are all instructor graded activity types. Now you can see that this add content has another option from my content. So if you already have created content at a particular level in a particular section, it shows there. If you're like me and can't remember where you put things, you can go to my content under content, and that gives you a bigger menu. So it shows you everything you've created in a particular lesson and where it's located. Also, when you're teaching another course in the future, you can import all of this very easily. Now, another handy feature is the ability to add an instructor note. So this is where you want to either add a bit of clarification, or perhaps you want to add even an anecdote of your own. You can upload a travel picture that relates to a cultural section. It's just amazing how much personalization you can add to a course by adding an instructor note. For this one, I just want to clarify, and I can insert my note anywhere inside the activity I'd like. I can title my note. I can record an audio note. This might be useful as well as an audio prompt. And I can type in a note. Here's one that students typically ask questions about, because they forget that colors can be adjectives as well as nouns. So I might want to mention to them, be sure to make the colors agree with the nouns they describe. Something along those lines, or I can even leave it as an audio note. And that will show up in all of my sections. Once I create that note, it is tied to that activity forever in all of my future courses as well. So I would recommend not putting anything date specific, but keeping these very generic. Now, these instructor notes can be added to any activity and in any location within that activity. And you can title them whatever you like, or simply leave them blank, and it will be called instructor note. You can go back later and edit them. You can choose to minimize them by default or expand them. You saw the expanded view, so let's take a look at what it looks like to have it minimized. So a student would not see the entire note if it were minimized, but rather have to click on the drop down. And if you no longer think the note is needed, just click on delete. It's as easy as that. Let me show you the calendar feature. You've likely seen the calendar from the assignment calendar view, where it shows what is due each day, which date has how many assignments due, and about how long it might take the average student to complete that particular assignment set. If you have not played around with this feature yet, you can change the due date for an assignment set from the calendar by simply clicking on that assignment set. It's really fast and easy to do it from here, because these might all come from different strands from the lesson. So you can click on reassign and pick a new due date. You can also unassign. You can remove an assignment altogether. Maybe I accidentally assigned this lesson test. I can come to my calendar and unassign it. There's also a nice little advanced search feature where you can start assigning assignments from the whole entire lesson, or where you can get your magnifying glass out and zoom in on a particular type of activity. For example, if you don't want to go to activities and search by all of these different strands by clicking on them individually, if you are familiar enough with your program, you can simply go to the calendar option, start assigning, and you can change these settings to be what you need for these assignments that you are about to release. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one as it is, that I'm going to select from all activities even if we have not previously assigned them. Location, yep, lesson 1 sounds great, although you can whittle that down a bit more if you'd like to. And properties, I'm going to take the most expanded view possible, all activities from lesson 1. I'll show you in a minute how we're going to narrow that down. But right now I want to take a wide angle view. I want to see what all is available in the whole entire lesson. And you can see there is a ton. In fact, I have to click on show more to see everything. I can assign any activity from any strand across all of these different sections of the lesson. And when I assign them, I'll see on the calendar my time estimate right then and there. So I just released some more assignments to this date, and now I see that my students will take on average 51 minutes to complete those 10 assignments. However, you can also search for something more specific. For example, let's say that I want to assign a partner chat, then I could select activity type, partner chat, and apply. This is under the properties heading. And now I can compare apples to apples. That's my only bad joke of the day, I promise. So I can now see what these are like, where they're located, and decide which one I would like to assign. You can also choose based on other parameters. So I'm going to go back to all types of activities and apply. And now let's find activities that were perhaps assigned to a previous course. You can do that from previously assigned. Now this is my only course, my first course in this particular program, so it's not going to show any, but you could go to previous section and then select a section that you've already taught and then see what you have assigned from that section in the past. One other option is to go to locations, the middle category, and limit this to a particular section and even a particular component. Maybe you only want to see video manual or lab manual activities. So this is a nice, handy way to release assignments that I think is probably going to save you some time. Oh, one other one that I just remembered is that you can filter by grading type if you go to properties. So for example, if you want to show only instructor graded activities, you can do that. Or if you're having a really busy week and only want to see auto graded activities, you can do that too. And then you have not only the per date total, but you have all June totals or all the activities for a given month. So if I release something else to a different day in this month, then that total is going to change. So now I see that my total for the month shows down here as 13 activities and a time estimate of an hour and 19 minutes. Okay, so let's take a look at resources. Underneath our content menu, we're going to select resources. And as you can see, there are tons of these too. There are a couple of ways you can browse. You can browse by lesson, so I can see absolutely everything that's available for lesson 1, including an activity pack. And again, this will be dependent upon the program that you are using. Audio scripts, digital image banks, grammar tutorial scripts, lab audio, testing program, information, you name it. So it's all there by lesson. I can also see the different subsections, if you will, over here on the left and can browse by those. If I only want to see testing program items, I can do that. This is where you'll find tests that you can print to give in class if you would like to do that. I can also browse by component. So let's say that I find myself using a particular component quite a bit. So I can go to, for example, activity packs, and I can then see everything that's available in the activity pack. I can do the same thing for grammar slides if I'm putting together some tutorials and want to use the grammar slides, or if I want to pop them up in class. And I can go to multi-lesson as well as selecting an individual lesson. Now, in addition to being able to access all the fantastic content that's already in existence, I can do a couple of other things as well. I can have different resources show to my students. So I think they should see the ACTFL World Readiness Standards. I'm going to toggle this slider over to Visible. Or if I want to do some activity pack exercises in class, but I don't want to print those off in advance, I can have my students access them through the Supersite. Now, these are not submittable assignments in the resources area, but the students will be able to view them just as you can. Now you can even select all in order to make everything visible to your students by clicking on Show, or to make everything invisible to your students by clicking Hide. Now the great thing is that if you get a little bit trigger happy and show everything, don't worry, the testing program is still protected. It will not show to the students no matter what. Another nice feature in the resources area is that you can add your own resources. You can choose a file from your computer, and it can be any type of file, a Word document, a PDF, an image file, even a video file. It can be a syllabus. It can be your lesson plans that you only upload for yourself. It can be absolutely anything you would like. And you can describe it, place it where you want it to go, and decide whether it's going to be visible to students. You can also use this to share a file with students that might be easier to share from here than from your learning management system. And later on, you could always edit it or delete it. One thing I like to point out to my students is the vocabulary tools. This is a fantastic way to review vocabulary, both from a current lesson and from a previous lesson. And I always like to point it out to students entering a level so that they can go back and review vocabulary from a previous course even. So you can have your students do this from time to time. I tell them to try to do it as often as they do homework. And you can just select one category at a time. They can select whichever categories they feel that they need to review. And it's a very, very easy way to practice vocabulary where they can, let's do this one, where they can minimize what they're reviewing at any one time. So here we have el borrador. I think that means eraser. Oh, good, I know that one. Ooh, how do you pronounce this word?
La psicología.
There we go, la psicología. Psychology, of course, I know that one too. Ooh, what's
El
this one?
salón de clases.
Let's say that I think that means sausage in class. No, I'm not right. So I'm going to click on not yet. And what happens is that particular card is cycled back through on the second go round. The students see a wonderful little feedback score, and they can practice just the words that they did not know the first time. And this goes both ways. It can go from English to the target language, but it can also go from the target language to English. So definitely recommend that your students use those vocabulary tools. Those are the flashcards, the vocabulary digital flashcards. Now, underneath vocabulary, there are some other options. For example, the student could print vocabulary and have a nice handy sheet, or simply print it and save it as a PDF. Also, the students can customize this a bit. If a student learns a new word in class or outside of class, that word can be added right here. Oh, actually, let me use this one. This is our accent bar. There we go. And then let's type in our English meaning and save. And now it's part of that list. Or if you like to add in new vocabulary during class time, then the students can be encouraged to add those words in on their own. And here we have la música, and it shows that I added it with the pencil icon. And we can edit that if we need to. So if I had forgotten to put that accent mark in, I could edit it, place the accent mark in, and update. Click on save, and there you have it. So I hope that you learned something new, something useful, something that will save you time, something that will enhance your course for your students. Well, that's all we have for today. Thanks so much for joining us. Gracias, merci, dankeschön, grazie. Now back to you, Kate.
Thank you, Stephanie, for walking us through the more advanced features of the Supersite. Just a quick reminder that if you did submit a question during the broadcast, someone from the Vista Higher Learning team will respond to your question via email. Thank you again for sharing your time with us today. It was such a pleasure to have you with us, and we hope to see you again soon in another of our training sessions.